It's a cool, damp morning at Zandvoort. This is the 5th round of the GT4 European Series for 2019. Life started at Monza in April, Brands Hatch in May, Paul Ricard in June, searing heat at the end of last month at Misano, and now a total stirring of the pot. Fans already sitting up high in the dunes around this fantastic old circuit. When I say old, I mean historic, but as you can see, track temperature not yet 17 degrees. That's considerably less than when they last went racing in Italy. But for a lot of the teams, it's their home race. A great deal of Dutch interest in the GT4 series and a wonderful spread of manufacturers, cars going out onto the circuit. And just to let you know how it was at the front end in practice yesterday, the first session, fastest time, Ricardo van der Ende. He knows this circuit like nobody else, the Dutch great, topping the charts in his Ecris M4. But then in the second session, it was the Equipe Vershaw, another Dutch interest, Benjamin Lessen and Daniel Mackay topping the charts. But track conditions should be better this morning than they were yesterday. You can just see the edge of a clear line opening, a drier line forming. There's Gavioli in one of the McLaren's out finding her way around the circuit. She knows the circuit, knows this car increasingly well, and sharing, as she has at a lot of the events, with Lisette Brahms. But right now it's qualifying, it's quick fire. 2 20-minute sessions. Qualifying number 1 we are in now. Therefore, the first of the drivers in the pairing will decide the team's grid position for the first race, and in the second qualifying session, which starts very, very soon after this, we will go and form the grid for session number 2, for race number 2. Wonderful flowing circuit, and this driver, this Belgian racer, Benjamin Lessen, really is going super well this year for Equipe Vershaw. The McLaren seems very, very nimble indeed, and as you can see, even at this early point where grip is at a premium, finding the confidence to press on. Of course, this circuit has had many formats over the years, built just after World War II, right in from the sea. I mean, literally is 1 dune in from the North Sea coast. Bit of a twitch there from Benjamin Lessen, pushing a little bit before he's got heat into the tyres. That will be the problem today, but through its life, it's been chopped right back. It was then lengthened again, but it doesn't have the flow of the original circuit, but with fantastic stories, corners like Scheiflach, it's an absolute challenge for the drivers. Tight infield section, and then sweeping around the final few corners, and of course exit speed onto the long start-finish straight. Absolutely imperative for a good lap. So just approaching the final corner, Benjamin Lessen getting the front end to turn in there, and now it's all about the exit speed. But as you can see, the dry line, we've had 1 session on track so far today, is just appearing on the outside of the corner there where he wants to be. Here, the long start-finish straight. A couple of the Mercedes already down to start their first flying laps. Number 2 is the Lippert Motorsport car, Lucy Treffs and Marcus Paverud. The Norwegian driver on board at the moment, so he's top of the chart, but it's nothing as yet. We're waiting for those first flying laps to be completed and some sensible times to be put on the board. Inevitable rumble from the Mercedes. Great growl both in GT3 and GT4 trim. And the GT4 AMG Mercedes, a very, very popular car. Looks great, but also really seems very, very well balanced indeed. And the drivers have got to grips with it in quick time, certainly superior to its predecessor, who is starting to get some quick times in. Well, Benjamin Lessen, we saw on screen, he is probably going to go to the top of the charts when those first flying laps come in, but Marcus Paverud is fighting his corner. He's gone faster still in that first of the 3 timing sectors around the circuit, but traffic thereabouts. Luckily, some of the cars on their outlap staying out of the way as these two, the Lippert Motorsport car number 2 streaks out into the back part of the circuit where you really can find some flow. So who's going to join up the lap? Well, it certainly looks as though Marcus Paverud is doing precisely that. 2 pink sector times, that means fastest of all, but then it's the easiest time to come about those when drivers are on their first flying lap. Best time yesterday, but the track was wet, 1 minute 48.276 seconds, set by the Ecris M4 of Ricardo van der Ende. But right now, let's see what marker is going to be put onto the board. These 2 Mercedes, the first 2 cars to set flying laps, and the first one on the board will be, just waiting for the time to clip up, Max Cobolton immediately toppled, but only by half a second, by Marcus Paverud, but right behind them was the number 1 Phoenix Racing Audi, and at the wheel Nikolai Moller-Madsen, and he went top, but immediately was toppled by 0.6 of a second by the driver of the McLaren we looked at early in the session, Benjamin Mezen. So 4 crews have set a flying lap. Another driver who looks as though he's going very well indeed. Fastest man at the moment, the Dane, Nikolai Moller-Madsen. But wait, Ricardo van der Ende is on a charge in that number 8 Ecris Motorsport M4. He looks as though he's going to topple all of them when he completes his flying lap. 1 minute 53.3. Don't forget, yesterday 1 minute 48.2. So time to be found, but with every lap, the track is starting to dry out. One factor that always helps with that is a breeze, but ironically, this must be only the second time I've come to Zandvoort when the flags are not nearly blowing off their flagpoles. Nikolai Moller-Madsen continues to push. Max Kobold is fastest of all on his second flying lap at the start of it, but it's Ricardo van der Ende now goes top. Does he do it by a small margin? No, why bother with that? He's on top by 1 second. Now it's 0.8 of a second, Duncan Houseman. Recognise some of these names, Dutch names at the top on a Dutch circuit, and what Duncan Houseman does not know about this circuit is not worth knowing. The family history goes all the way back. His father involved way back. Nikolai Moller-Madsen hanging the tail out beyond over the curves, just held it together. Up over the top of the crest, many crests. If you look at circuit maps, you can't always tell what gradient is to be found, and there is certainly gradient at Zandvoort. Not what you'd expect. You'd think a coastal circuit would be relatively flat, but here it is, just a few 100 metres inland, and there is gradient to be played with. And Nikolai Moller-Madsen picking up his pace, but at the moment, his form, that first flying lap, if that must have been taken away from him. I haven't looked at the report at the bottom of the screen, but his first flying lap appears to have been cancelled. So he is now waiting to see what he can do on his second flying lap, and he's reporting into the pit, so he's not yet happy. But look, there's still 14 minutes remaining. And Marcus Paverud in his second flying lap now goes to the top. Max Kobold is second, so number 2 from number 4, the 2 Lippert Motorsport Mercedes. 1 minute 52.9, Marcus Paverud. Let's see what the response is from Ricardo van der Ende. No, his first sector time, not so good. Car 21, first sighting of that, and that's one of the 2 Allied Racing Porsche Caymans, the Porsche 718 Cayman. And 21 at the moment in the hands of Benjamin Mezatis. He'll hand over to for the second session for Konstantin Scholl. It must be said at the moment that Porsche's being a little bit outgunned in GT4 racing. They've been such a staple over the years. This is the new refined, improved GT4 version, the Cayman 718. And at the moment, Benjamin Mezatis looking for his position in the timing chart, waiting for him to get up onto the timing screens. At the moment now it's you name at the top. Marcus Paverud has been toppled. Alec Udell, the American racer, who's having such an impressive debut season in Europe. The number 25 car, which is one of the 2 MDM Motorsport BMWs, he shares that with Simon Nat, and Simon will be pleased because Alec has got provisional pole, but it's only just under 1/10 of a second from Marcus Paverud. Mezatis coming around to complete towards the end. Well, no, actually he's still got a distance to go. He's 2/3 of the way around that first flying lap in the number 21 Allied Racing Porsche Cayman. 12 minutes remaining. It's a BMW on top from a Mercedes and a Mercedes, and in 4th place, car number 61. Great time there, Tom Wood. So an Aston Martin up into 4th place overall. British racing going well. Marcus Paverud back on top, Max Kobold second, Thomas Wood third. I think maybe a few times taken away. Paverud now 1 minute 50.5, suddenly jumping forward. And the sister car from Lippert Motorsport also into the 1 minute 50s. They are 2.5 seconds clear of the rest. It shows they're settling down. The track is beginning to dry out. Benjamin Mezatis, we watched him around the lap, only 18th out of the 21 runners who've set a flying lap so far. Quite busy in the pits, cars coming in and out. So lots of people just trying to adjust to the conditions. Conditions changing by the moment. There was a little more rain overnight, much more rain yesterday. And being an optimist, I'm looking for little gaps in the clouds to see blue sky. I can't do that as yet. So Mezatis continues to pick up the pace in the number 21. Driver who's going very well. Alec Udell was up at the top. A lot of these times are getting confiscated though, because Udell went to the top of the charts. He's only 16th now, so his best lap was taken away, but he's setting a really, really good time this time around. Alec Udell, you can see he's on the left. Look how much bigger the BMW appears than the little McLaren next to him. But the number 25 BMW, I'm sure, will be back at the top of the charts as long as Alec stays within the white lines that mark out the edge of the circuit. but as it stands, it's 3 Mercedes at the top of the charts with legitimate ties. Marcus Paverup, Max Cobalt, and a really, really good run from the treble 7 Schwede Motorsport car, Dominic Schrammel, who shares with the tallest driver in the field, the 7-foot-tall, 2 meters 13 driver, Jan Reining, who was up on the podium at Misano, but that was 2 weeks ago. Conditions could not be more different this time around, as Alex Budel just struggles to find the grip that really seems at such a premium. So hot in Misano, cool and damp here at Zandvoort. A lot more drivers getting closer to the fast Mercedes at the top of the chart, the 2 Leipzig Motorsport cars, and then, as mentioned, Dominic Schrammel, 3rd fastest in his Mercedes. Then the best of the rest is now Gabriele Piana, car 111. That's the RN Vision STS BMW M4 he shares with Marius Zug. And Koen Burgert's going very well on home ground. So he has the delight of pushing hard. Patrick Niederhauser put a KTM up into 6th place overall. Julian Darras, his Aston Martin. That's from Street Art Racing in 7th place. Plenty of manufacturer variety at the front end. Benjamin Mazatis, we saw already on, just outside the top 10 now, 11th place. He is the best of the Porsche runners. And I really do feel the fastest lap in this session is going to come right at the close, simply because the track is drying all the time. Here comes Julian Darras. He's listed down, he was 7th, he's now down to 8th, just waiting for his time to flash through, and he goes 2nd fastest. No sector times better than anybody else, but 3 very, very good times. So he's now just under 0.4 of a second down on Mads Siljehaug, who just, as the pair of them, and Patrick Niederhauser, they vaulted over those 2 Mercedes from Leipzig Motorsport. They're sitting in the pits at the moment, and now it's KTM, Aston Martin, KTM at the top of the charts. And Julian Darras with that time, 2nd fastest. He needs to find 0.4 of a second to see if he can go to the top of the charts. Still a handful of cars in the pits going back out. Sellerslar Racing Team have got 2 new driver pairings this weekend. Angelique de Tavernier, but at the moment, young Dutch racer Kai van Berlo in number 30, and the 31 car, another Dutch racer, Bob Herber, out to tackle their home circuit. But right now, Julian Darras, you can see pushing very, very hard indeed, right to the edge of the circuit. But he's going to have to keep pushing, because Mads Siljehaug has gained half a second on him in the 1st sector alone, in that number 24 KTM from True Racing. French racer Julian Darras needed to improve. He's already finding an improvement, but as he advances on Mads Siljehaug, Mads is stretching his advantage. 1 minute 49.1 versus 1 minute 49.5 for Julian Darras. Both will go down very close indeed to getting into the 1 minute 48s, times that the best teams achieved yesterday, but Mads Siljehaug will be the first one to really go down, because over this lap alone he's gained, I'll do the maths, he's gained nearly a second. 1 minute, well, let's see, new target time, 1 minute 47.7 for Mads Siljehaug, 1 minute 48.5, 2 KTMs at the top, because Patrick Niederhauser goes 2nd. And though he improved, Julian Darras actually tumbles down to 4th place. Dominic Schrammel has got going again in the Mercedes. Mercedes from Schwede Motorsport. How low will we go? We have a 20-minute session. We have 7 minutes remaining. Then we'll do it all over again after a short break as we work out the grids for the 2 GT4 races here at Zandvoort. Some of the very quick runners early on, waiting to see what they can do. Benjamin Sen back out onto the circuit, picking up the pace. He was at the top of the timesheets not so long ago. He's now down in 15th place in that Equipe Fischer McLaren, but I'm sure a lot more to come. He's trying to be on with his tyres sweet when it gets to the end of the session, the very end, when the tyres will be at their best, or more to the point, the track will be at its best. And if your tyres are working very well for you, then I'm sure you will make hay. 2 KTMs out to the edge and beyond. Car 24 is the fastest of all, Mads Siljehaug. He's got a new teammate this weekend, over from the States, Nikolai Elganayan. But right now, as you can see, 1/3 of a second gained in that 1st sector alone. So 1 minute 47.7 looks as though a 1 minute 46 may even be possible. Well, let's go for low 1 minute 47.7. That could be a decent target time for Mads. Mads having a really, really good season, as he always does in the KTM. But traditionally, it's the number 16 car from True Racing that is the better of the two in terms of results. Patrick Niederhauser driving that in 0.6 of a second behind him. In fact, it's the Niederhauser car that's gone particularly well, notably partnering with Reinhard Koffler. Patrick Niederhauser from Switzerland and Reinhard from Austria. They have gathered so far 2 podium positions, but 1 win, and that was in the first of 2 races at Brands Hatch. So very, very good on a twisting circuit, and it has to be said, as you look at the circuit here, that not too many long straights, so you've got to work those corners, and the KTMs are fantastic at that. Mads pouring it around the circuit, 1 minute 47.312 seconds last time around. Best by 0.6 of a second from Patrick Niederhauser. So Mads really, really getting the car to work for him. Norwegian racer pushing on. He's very, very comfortable when the track's a little bit slippery in the Valvoline livery car. And again, he finds another 1/10 of a second in the opening sector of the lap. Nobody else getting close to him in terms of pace at the moment. And then bang, suddenly a really quick time comes in from Finlay Hutchinson. Very popular cars. He's driving the V8 Racing Chevrolet Camaro. Always like the big bangers at V8 Racing. The name says it all. He's now 0.5 of a second down. So the Scottish racer, who's also competing in the GT3, the Blancpain GT World Challenge Europe event, he likes to double up. He's doubling up this weekend and doing it very well indeed. I said look for a time coming from Benjamin Nassen. He'd fallen to 16th overall, having been the pace setter at the outset. He puts his McLaren into 2nd place. He's 1/2 a second down on Siljehaug. Siljehaug, though, is moving the target all the time. Here he comes to complete another flying lap. His 8th lap, 7th flying lap in all. Will he get into the 46s? 1 minute 46.9. No, that's his teammate. That's Patrick Niederhauser who goes into the 46s. He's 1/10 of a second ahead of Mads Siljehaug. So it's the 2 True Racing KTMs. And there is Niederhauser. Lights are flashing. This lap is being rather wrecked in traffic. Unfortunately, he's in behind one of the Aston Martins. Is that Julian Deras, who's no slouch at all, as we saw some good early pace. Right now, Julian Deras, the times have changed so fast. He was at the sharp end of the field. He was fleetingly second. He's down to 19th place. So it is all going to be about getting your time in at the very end of the session. Patrick Niederhauser, the Swiss driver who seems to have the Midas touch in motor racing. He's going to see if he can keep it at the top of the charts. But his advantage over his teammate, over Mads Siljehaug, only 1/10 of a second. It's tight at the top. They're 1/2 a second clear of the rest. And just to reiterate how things are changing at the top, Finlay Hutchinson went 3rd, he's now 5th. Benjamin Nassen went 3rd, he's now 4th, because Nikolai Moller-Madsen has got the Phoenix Racing Audi, the number 1 car, really going very well indeed. He goes up into 4th place immediately. Finlay Hutchinson does a better lap. He goes back into 3rd. So the Scot in the V8 Racing Camaro having a really, really good run. Two and a half minutes remain. And Ricardo van der Ende, definitely a likely shot for pole position, has suddenly got himself into the mix. The Dutch racer has moved into 4th place. He's got to find 1/2 a second to put him top. So the Ecris M4 coming good as it did in practice yesterday when it was very, very effective. Top of the charts in one of the 2 practice sessions. What's this lap going to be for Patrick Niederhauser? We saw he had traffic early on. It's not going to be an improvement. Absolutely is not an improvement, but he's got 2 minutes remaining. He has a modicum of clear space in front of him, and he will use all of that to see if he can stay at the top of the charts. Max Kobold suddenly vaulted up to 6th place, becomes 7th, because Dominic Schrammel consistently going well in the Schrader Motorsport car. He's running in the Pro-Am class in this, so he's top of the Pro-Am runners. He moved up the charts, but he's now bounced back. Ali Gudel has vaulted up to 4th. And Nikolai Moller-Madsen has decided no KTMs at the top of the chart. He's put this red number 1. Oh, he's really, really pushing very hard indeed. The Dane getting very skitterish there. He's top of the charts now. Nikolai Moller-Madsen, the number 1 Audi, on top of the table from number 16 and 24 KTMs in the hands of Patrick Niederhauser and Mads Siljehaug, respectively. Traffic in front of the fastest driver on the field. Nikolai Moller-Madsen going up towards the wonderful crest, the dip, the tight right corner down with that enormous gravel bank beyond that is being tested. Not quite to the top, but certainly that is Rallycross Plus. That's Benjamin Mazatis, who fleetingly got in towards the end of the top 10, but right now he'll just simply be happy to get back to the track. But that was just to reiterate what a tricky corner Scheiflack can be. And that wasn't just gravel he was running through, that was wet gravel. And while that was happening, Ricardo van der Ende went up into second place, into the final minute of the session. You have to say Moller Madsen is being compromised by traffic. He's got past the Ginetta, who is making the moves. Patrick Niederhauser is picking up the pace again and should be able to start one further flying lap. And for Moller Madsen, I think the clock probably beat him to the fin. Oh no, he might just squeak in for one further lap. He's relying on that as he goes. Yep, it's going to be really touch and go whether he gets the checkered flag before it's flown or not. But at this moment, with 20 seconds on the clock, it's Nicolai Moller Madsen. There he comes. With Ricardo van der Ende second, Patrick Niederhauser in third place. Duncan Hausman, home pride, pushes him up into fifth in the second of the two V8 Racing Camaros. So the checkered flag not yet out. So Moller Madsen, all this quartet of cars will get on to one further flying lap. And as the flag falls, we've still got a host of drivers to complete this final flying lap. Mads Siljehaug puts the KTMs back on top by 7/1000ths of a second from Nicolai Moller Madsen. So Moller Madsen might have thought it was nearly done. Nearly is the operative word. He's got to do it all over again. But he did start this final flying lap. Finley Hutchinson in the big Camaro going around the nimble little Alpine. No problem at all, but the number 68 Camaro has tumbled down to 9th place overall, but he set the fastest first sector of anyone. Marginally improved his sector time. At the moment, he's 7/10ths of a second down. He will take, this is the end of his final flying lap. He's sure to go up from 9th place. How high will he rise? The Scot goes into third place overall. Will he stay there? He's 2/10ths down on the ultimate place, but a good run there from the Scot. Quick times still being put up from a host of drivers. Benjamin Lessen, watch out for him in McLaren. He's down in 9th place, got to finish his lap, but I think he'll pick him up. As he does, he comes through, in fact, no improvement. Marginal improvement, up to 7th place overall. It's Siljehaug from Moller Madsen from Hutchinson. It's KTM from Audi, from Chevrolet, and Ricardo van der Ende 4th in his BMW. Just waiting to see who is still to set a flying lap, who is still to finish their final flying lap. And as we saw, Mads Siljehaug was one of the last over the line, and Nicolai Moller Madsen, we thought he may be able to improve, but he's been toppled from the top, and there's no quick time coming from Moller Madsen. But Siljehaug, what can he do? Top of the charts at the moment, comes through. Is he going to stretch that advantage? He was 7/1000ths clear of the rest, and he goes 0.15 of a second, so he kept his sweetest for last. Anybody else going to topple? It's KTM in Mads Siljehaug's hands. Nicolai Moller Madsen second, no change from Moller Madsen. Stays in second place, and Alec Udell right at the end up into third place in his BMW. 4th place, Finley Hutchinson. I think that is probably the lot. There's the number 11 McLaren Gavioli, 25th. Packed field of cars here, 31 runners on home ground. Car looks absolutely fantastic. Bringing that back into the pit lane. So that looks like that's the last car off the track. So that's Mads Siljehaug, top of the True Racing KTM team. Number 4 Mercedes, Max Kobel, was in and out of the top 10, was right at the sharp end. But in the end, not even in the top 10, down to 13th. That's how much the times are changing. Just a whisker over a second down on the ultimate pace. That was chop and change, like only a practice, a qualifying session can be on a wet circuit. And the latest word from outside the commentary booth is the fact there's a fine drizzle starting to form. So just as the drivers were hoping the track would continue to dry, and it did seem to present a modicum of a properly dry line, a little precipitation coming in from the North Sea. As you can see, look at the pit lane, it's glistening down below. So driver change, and we will kick off all over again. It's very, very quick fire in qualifying. We'll kick off at 9 o'clock sharp. So let's take a look at the qualifying for race number 1. Super tight at the end. Mads Siljehaug on his final lap, deposing Nicolai Moller Madsen to go top, but as you can see, very tight indeed. 0.153 of a second. And Alec Udell, another starring performance in the MDM Motorsport. BMW goes up into 3rd place overall. The best of the Chevrolets in 4th place. Finley Hutchinson, he's sharing that with Olivier Hart. They could be a very, very strong pairing. Very, very tight at the top. Look, 1 second and a bit of small change covers the top 15 runners, right the way down to Tom Wood, who had a very good run early on in the Aston Martin that he shares with Fiona James. And you have to get down to 24th position before you're more than 2 seconds away from pole. And for a lot of these drivers, there's a lot more speed to come. Indeed, those two Celislaw Racing Team Mercedes, new pairings in both of those. Kai van Baarle getting the better of Bob Herber, but all about gaining experience, getting comfortable, not just with the track, but with the car for a lot of these drivers. But a packed grid of cars. Couple didn't go out. Andy Merrick, Stephen Patrick's Bullet Racing Mercedes appears to be still in the pit lane, along with the Maloney Tresoldi BMW for the W&D Racing team. But I'm sure they'll be able to weave their way forward from the rear end of the grid. Certainly strong enough driver pairings to do precisely that. So the brave souls up in the sand dunes, they have their favourite positions and they stay there through thick and thin. But as you can see, it's not a bright blue sky morning here at Zandvoort. The dunes just in from the North Sea coast, looking fantastic, but with a fine drizzle forming in the air. Just a little bit greasy out on the circuit for the drivers. Yeah, put up the deck chairs, but in fact, one thing you should always bring with you to Zandvoort, doesn't matter if it's high summer or not, is a windbreak. As you can see, the flags, the coast, as you can see, there's some motorhomes up on the coastline there. It is literally just over the edge of the dunes from the sea. So qualifying number 2 will start in under 4 minutes, and for a lot of the drivers, it's all about just saying where you can find grip to their number 2 driver, the driver who will go out to do this next 20-minute qualifying session. Just remember, we got down below the best time set on Friday here at Zandvoort, and it's not a sort of session where you feel lots of rubber is being put onto the circuit. Track temperature is actually dropped by 0.2 of a degree. Oh, it's falling as we speak, as that's the proof that that little drizzle is just coming in. So not a lot of heat to be put into the tyres today. And when they were racing out at Misano 2 weeks ago, you could put a 4 in front of that figure. It was nearly 40 degrees more of track temperature. It was incredibly hot on the Adriatic coast. Not so much here, but it's all about variety through this season. I mean, any championship where you start off at Monza, go to Brands Hatch, then try Paul Ricard, Misano and Zandvoort, totally different circuits, and that is what provides the challenge for all of these drivers. And one thing we're missing this weekend is an Alpine that will challenge at the very front end of the field. Well, let's take a look at the championship points. Max Kobold, as I said, ended up, I think, 13th in qualifying, but there he is in the Silver Cup, leading the way with his compatriot, fellow Jan Kisiel. It's not a compatriot, of course. Jan comes not from Holland. What am I talking about? He comes from Poland. Simon Knapp, Alec Udell. You really feel that's a pairing that keeps advancing towards the front, so watch out for them. This is the Silver Cup ranking, the top class in the GT4 European Series. We have Pro-Am and Am classes as well. Yeah, very greasy down the pit lane. You can see that painted line. Light rain in the air. It's the message from race control. There we are. It's a guaranteed excuse built in for all the drivers. In the Pro-Am Cup, it's Lucy Treffs and Marcus Pavrud. They showed good. Pavrud showed good pace at the start of that session, and Gabriele Piana and Marius Zug. They have a very strong pairing in second place overall. Alain Ferte, great to have the driver still competing. The veteran French racer, you can call him that. He was at the front end in Formula 2, Formula 3000. At the turn of the 80s. Fabulous to have him still racing, still being competitive, third in the Pro-Am Cup class. Racing for Red Relay competition with Grégoire Demoustier. Great little Pro-Am driver lineup. And Clement Seiler, Pascal Bachmann, top of the charts for Street Art Racing in their Aston Martin in the Am Cup. And then Johan Vannerum and Jean-Luc Behet not here this weekend. They've normally racing for the Celleslar Racing team, so others will be able to gain as they're on the sidelines. As you can see, the crew's trying to work out exactly what tyres to put on their cars, waiting to the last moment. But you get the feeling this morning at Zandvoort, not much is going to change. Little light rain is falling, but really very light indeed. Over the sea, though, it's a little lighter over the sea. The clouds, not grey, they're white, but the clouds, we have not got blue sky, but we have not got strong wind either. Actually, as I say that, look out the window, the flags in the pit lane fluttering a little bit more busily. That's from the Tarzan end. The drivers coming down the start-finish straight will be into the wind. Face in. So, cars can report to pit exit any moment now. And one driver, I thought one car came in very, very late indeed. Academy Motorsport, Tom Wood, just outside the top 10. Loved taking the checkered flag once, so they decided, loved it so much, did it a second time, possibly, and they're under investigation for that. But one car came in very much after all the others. So I shall name no names, but it was car 61 if you're interested. Car 61, one of the two Aston Martins entered by Academy Motorsport, Fiona James and Tom Wood, and the number 62 car shared by Will Moore and Matthew Cowley. And already at this meeting there have been assorted misdemeanors. I gathered early on that Dries van Tor failed to get to the driver's briefing, and his punishment is to be help the stewards at the British GT round later in the year. Actually, I really like that form of punishment, to get drivers to see what the officials have to do. And I remember a few years ago, some young racers in Germany, they were put on the marshals posts out around the circuit to understand why coming up the inside and using everybody else as a sort of billiard ball is not a good idea. Because certainly if you have a corner, it was at the Red Bull Ring, and I think there were a dozen cars off in the gravel at the top of the circuit. So miss the next race, sit it out, which hurts in its own way, but go and stand with the marshals. And I think that's a really, really good way of teaching the drivers what to do, or more importantly, what not to do. Waving arms down there, and I think, yes, the car is about to go out and play. The track was greasy at the start of the first session. This is the second of the two qualifying sessions for the GT4 European Series. Track possibly slightly greasier because a little bit of rain and no action on track for around 10 minutes. But I think one little precipitation has fallen, will be dried out of the way fairly quickly, because with a full field of cars, around 30 cars coming out to play, there will be a dry line coming very soon indeed. And as always with GT4, that fantastic mix of manufacturers going out of the pitch. You can see a BMW, a pair of Mercedes, tucked in behind an Aston Martin, McLaren's as well. This one, number 14, is one that goes very, very well. Daniel Mackay, Scottish racer, has taken over from Benjamin Messen. Messen, his Belgian teammate. And I think that's a car that just is strong everywhere. Won both of the opening races, the races at the opening round at Monza. Has been a feature in many in between, but a couple of no scores have hurt the championship chances, but still plenty of opportunity to fight back. Windscreen wipers going, there's the clue. It's light rain, it's dry in the commentary box, you'll be glad to know, but it is wet enough for wipers out on the circuit. The number one Phoenix Racing Audi, very strong in the hands of Nikolai Moller-Madsen, and now it's the turn for Cedric Freiberghaus, the Swiss racer. See what he can do. They've not won a race this year, but they've had a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, a 10th, but unfortunately 3 retirements as well. Right now for all the drivers, it's not just finding the feel for the grip in the circuit, or the lack of grip that it's offering. It's about getting yourself some clear track. So Cedric Freiberghaus, as we see some raindrops on the lens, we'll be looking to see what he can do. It's not great for Grégoire de Moustier. Well, they're just working under the car, so it had a little off-track excursion in the previous session. Alain Ferte drove it in the first session, and now it's Grégoire's turn, but losing time in this session. But if this rain could ease off a bit, and the track could dry out, and as drivers gain experience on whatever sort of surface there is for them out there, the fast times will come right at the end, so maybe not too much of a problem for de Moustier. On that crossover point, but we didn't have windscreen wipers in the first session. The light rain came just at the end. Track temperature was going down. It was 16.9 the first time I looked, and it's being cooled by this light rain. Still, the Alpine sits in the pit lane. Wants to come out and play, but with the mechanic crawling out from underneath, hopefully his repairs are underway as the drivers go on to their first flying lap. So when it comes out, it will be effectively 2 laps short of everybody else. Jan Kizil winding up the number 4 Leipzig Motorsport car on those 2 big yellow Mercedes. Silver Cup class leader with Max Kobold, his teammate, and a very, very confident runner. 2 wins for them. They won the second of the 2 races at Misano, and likewise won the second of the 2 races at Brands Hatch, so sort of a rich vein of form, which is why they're at the top of the championship. Going past one of the 2 Celislaw racing cars. It's being driven really rather slowly, but as I said, 2 new driver lineups for the Celislaw team, so it is about feeling their way in. The green Mercedes keeping out of the way by and large as Jan Kizil presses on. The team, the sister car to this, now in the hands of Lucy Treff, the young German racer. Seems to be setting the best pace in the early stages of this first flying lap, and certainly the shots from the camera suggest the rain is becoming slightly heavier, unless my eyes are going hazy at this early point in the day. So let's remember the best. More raindrops on the lenses. The first flying lap's coming in. As with the first session, they're in the 1 minute 54s, 53s. Don't forget, we will get down to the 1 minute 47s, or did at least in the first qualifying session. Daniel Mackay, I said, look out for him. Top of the charts, 54.4 in the Keep Shaw. McLaren, Jamie van den Belt, second fastest as it stands. The Street Art Racing Aston Martin he shares with Julian Derras. Jan Kizil, we've been watching him. He's only 6th quickest, nearly 5 seconds down on the ultimate pace. But as you saw, the pole had a lot of cars in his way early on, clunking the curbs, sliding a little bit wide, but keeping the power on. Just a third of a second between Mackay and Van den Balk at the top of the charts. McLaren ahead of Aston Martin. Lucy Treff's Mercedes in third. And in fourth place, one of the two MDM Motorsports BMWs, it's Mark van der on home ground. Fourth quickest, Simon Knapp in the sister car, tucked in behind, quarter of a second down. This is Daniel Mackay, fastest of all. First part of the lap, not so good this time around. In fact, really rather poor. He's about a second down on where he should be in the first sector, so this lap he can park. In fact, as you can see, 1.3 seconds down on what was the fastest time in the first sector so far in this session. As he's top of the charts, he must have been there or thereabouts on his opening stint. Lots of people improving, but that's just because they're going on their onto their second flying lap at the moment. Now Duncan Mackay's really getting rather balked there, so what do you do? Go past or hang back? 2 corners to go to complete this lap. He doesn't want to be held up behind the Mercedes any longer, but Jan Kizil doing a decent job. They're 6th fastest at the moment. So he's not behind a tail ender. At the moment, there are only 3 cars covered by the top session. Mackay has decided, yeah, the traffic's in the way, the stuff I want to do to adjust the setup on the car, coming into the pits. Time of plenty, just almost 14 minutes. And the number 2 Mercedes, Lucy Treff's, has already entered the pit lane. So 2 of the top 3 runners in the pits for adjustments. 2 MDM Motorsports. BMW's 4th and 5th, 26 ahead of 25. No improvements for them last time around, but I was about to say they've got a clear run on things, but unfortunately you can see they have a contender up ahead of them. Someone who may just obstruct their runs. Yeah, the Aston Martin in the way somewhat. 25's got past, which is Simon Knapp, Mark van der Ard just biding his time. Still waiting for a handful of the field to actually put a flying lap on the board. It's still Daniel Mackay from Jamie van den Belt. Nobody's managed to topple them. Lucy Treff's, like Mackay in the pits lane. Mark van der Art not improving last time around. Traffic was the cause, but now the 2 MDM Motorsport BMWs, a clear run. Exactly what they want. Track, is it getting wetter? Hard to tell, but they're still using the windscreen wipers. I think the real key as to whether the track is getting wetter is next time around. If we stop seeing any improvements, well, we have our answer. At the moment, they're improving because they're just simply gaining more experience in the changing conditions. Car number 15 has had a little excursion, so there's been some a bit more than that for the number 11. One in the pits, Marius Zug, the 111, not put a time on the board and clearly had a mishap. And car 15 went off the circuit at turn 9, which is the NM Racing Ginetta, shared by Lucky Medias and Jorge Catalan. Obviously looking to see if the bodywork is snagging on the front wheel. Well, it is, quite simply. How can they pull it back from there? Can they pull it in back? It doesn't look as though, as the clock counts down, they're going to be able to manage that before the session is over. I could be wrong. Mechanics work wonders many a time. Third fastest time, the man on the bicycle with the umbrella, I guess, but moving around the circuit to find a place to get a better view. No changes at the top. It's still the 3 cars of Daniel Mackay, the McLaren, the Aston Martin of Jamie van den Balk and Lucy Treff's in that number 2 bright yellow light Motorsport Mercedes. They're the top 3 cars all in the pit, so I think things are getting wetter. But as I say that, the light suddenly becomes a little bit brighter outside. Pretty much half the field, in fact maybe 70% of the field now in the pit lane. Mark van der Art looking for grip out there, and doesn't appear to be any whatsoever. Certainly not as much as he's looking for, but what he does have is a clear track. Gold dust. After Shavlak, absolutely fantastic corner. Can't see the exit when you arrive. You've got this, and when you come to the crest of the corner, all you can see in front of you is this massive, hugely high sand dune, huge gravel trap. We saw one of the runners going through there in the first session, and a long run back to get to the circuit all over again. But going too deep, there is something to catch you, but a long recovery run. Equus BMW, car you'd expect to be at the very front end of the field. Ewan Mackay in 18th place, but in the pits at the moment. A mere 12 seconds off the ultimate pace, so quite simply did an outlap, brought the car in, and now has decided the track will be best at the end of the session. Windscreen wipers on, being pushed out of the pit garage area, the pit lane, into the fast lane of the pits, along with the treble 7 Schrader Motorsport Mercedes from the next pit garage. They'll go out, and they're going to be hoping the track is at its very best. Reinhard Koffler sharing that really strong pairing with Patrick Niederhauser, the number 16 KTM. We saw it right at the sharp end of the field in the first session. And at the moment, the KTM is down in 12th place overall for Reinhard. Is he improving this time around? Yes, he is. No, it's the early part of the lap. He got very close to his best last time. Now he's in the first sector of the circuit, going out to the back part of the circuit. You can see motorhomes in the background. It's a real holiday area. Dutch seaside resort, but with the rain on the lens, it's sort of day to stay inside or simply get on your bike and travel a long way, or better still, get in your bike and come to the circuit. No change at the top of the field. First session it was changing with every handful of seconds, but right now I think we're going to have to wait right to the end, and the best time 1 minute 54.4, still next closest thing to 7 seconds down on the best lap set in qualifying session number 1. It feels like it's a different day, but instead of easing off, the rain has definitely become heavier. So I think improvements are going to be very few and far between. Probably only those who had problems early in the session will be able to pick up their pace. Waiting to see what Alain Ferté can do. He took over from Grégoire de Moustier, the little Alpine. We saw it being worked on. It was late out onto the circuit. It's about to start its first flying lap. And, I don't expect massive heroics, but Ferté was always good in the rain. Okay, he just completed his first lap. Now he's going to go onto his first flyer, one of the big V8 racing Camaros rumbles down the pit lane. Reinhard Koffler just looking for grip out around the circuit and absolutely not finding it. Already in the first sector of the lap, 3 seconds down the ultimate time, nearly 5 seconds down in the middle sector. So really it's a case of just going out and gaining experience. It could be wet for the first of 2 races, and you might as well see how this circuit feels when there's less grip than you might have wanted. The first of their races not too far from now. It actually kicks off just afternoon, 12:45, first of their races. But look at the camera lens, far wetter than it was at the start of the session. We saw those first few drops of rain, but right now even a driver who knows the KTM like Reinhard Koffler struggling to get to put it where he wants it. So it really does seem at the moment drivers are lapping, only a handful of drivers managing to get below 2 minutes. In fact, the best time in the last few minutes was 1 minute 59.9. To move him up to 9th place overall, that's Alessandro Giovanelli, and that's one of the 2 new driver pairings for the Cellizar Racing team, the team that fields 2 Mercedes. He's sharing that with Bob Herber. That puts him into 9th, but he's the only one who's managed to wrestle his car around under 2 minutes. So that means the best time in this session is already 5 seconds clear of the best times we're setting now. More and more spray being kicked up all over the circuit by all of the drivers. At the start of the session, it wasn't necessary to use windscreen wipers. Most were just having a little go with them, but now it's fully wet for all of these drivers here. Still waiting, and suddenly, just as I said, it's very difficult to get below 2 minutes. Alex Lambert moves his car up to 6th place overall, 1 minute 57.2. Best lap by far. Alex is driving the 66 Bullet Racing Mercedes that made such an impression at Misano last time out, and really the second of the Bullet Racing cars, a first and a third in Italy. Really strong form, and Alex is carrying that form here, confident, but just is not likely to find another 2 seconds to go to the top of the charts. More and more spray down the start-finish straight. You can see a bit of wind blowing the flags up and down the length of the pit lane. Still cars going out onto the circuit. Mads Siljehaug's car about to go out, but of course in this session it's not Mads, it's his new teammate. It's Nikolai Elganayan, driver over from the States, races in the in the GT4 series over there. And at the moment, he is 12th fastest. Times are getting quicker. The teams have done the adjustments very well indeed. The new face in 6th place, the number 8, Encris Motorsport M4, Ewan Mackay. 1 minute 56.6. He's nearly 2 seconds down on another person called Mackay, his brother Daniel, who's top of the charts in his McLaren. Now 1 minute 55.5. So Simon Knapp shows that you can get close to the ultimate pace. He's 7/10 of a second down in that number 25 BMW. He's got traffic though. Still 5 minutes remaining in the session. Maybe by the end we will get down to the very best times. The best time, the target time, Daniel Mackay, 1 minute 54.425 seconds. That was his first flying lap, and it's still good now. More and more rain out around the circuit. The driver's becoming a little more comfortable with it now. Simon Knapp certainly getting a wonderful flow. Alain Ferté, by the way, his first flying lap, almost 2 minutes flat. Only puts him 19th though. Cedric Freiberghaus picking up the pace, the number 1 Audi we saw right at the sharp end of the field in the first qualifying session. He's just done a better time than before. He's up to 7th place overall. We saw fleetingly the little Ginetta, and I must say, joined the championship last time out in Italy. Jorge Catalan, Spanish racer, going really well. He's got into the top 10, went up to 8th, just tumbled back to 9th. Who was moved ahead of him? Olivier Hart, the number 68, V8 Racing Camaro. Generally does his racing in historic racing with great aplomb, and David Hart's son up to 6th. The times are getting faster and faster, not yet able to topple Daniel Mackay's time though. 4 minutes remaining, the target still 1 minute 54.4. But Simon Knapp this time around moved up to 3rd last time. He's 7/10 down, but he's improved in the first 2 sectors. Doesn't look as though he's done enough to go top, but will he go 2nd fastest? The target now, Jamie Vandenbelt's time, 1 minute 54.759. Will he beat that? Let's see, a little bit of a traffic up ahead. Yes, well, no, he doesn't improve. In fact, the driver who goes 2nd is the number 4 driver. The number 4, one of the 2 Lippert Motorsport Mercedes, into 2nd place, 1.14 of a second down on the ultimate pace now. Jan Kisiel. There he goes through the gloom. It certainly is rather gloomy this morning at Zandvoort. On this form, what's he got in front of him? There's the question. He's 0.1 of a second down on Daniel Mackay. Daniel is back out onto the circuit to see if he can defend his provisional pole position, but the driver most likely is this one, Jan Kisiel, pressing on halfway around the circuit, coming up towards Chevlac. Quietly confident through there, looking very, very smooth indeed, then hard on the brakes for the next corner. Much tighter right-hander, swinging through there. Does not improve in the first sector though. How good are his next 2 sectors? He's a 1/3 of a second down. Was a little bit of traffic at the start, yes, and now he's had a little mistake there. Front end washed away over the curbs, kicking up yet more spray. So I think Jan can forget this lap, but he has time to do another one. Number 25 BMW in the hands now of Simon Knapp. Simon 4th fastest at the moment. Would love to put it on pole for his home circuit, his home race. Mark van der Aar, likewise, compatriot, is 6th fastest at the moment. We're doing a disservice to the drivers when we describe it as light rain. It was light rain, it's become a whole lot heavier. You can see just how hard it is for the drivers to get any grip, and that the final corner onto the start-finish straight, so crucial for them to get the car in a straight line and get the power down ASAP. Just been looking at the cars around the circuit, and certainly the information that you can see, the very end of the lap is where it's at its very wettest. That's why we saw this BMW really getting the tail twitching through that final corner. That's where the most of the spray is being kicked up as well. First part of the circuit, not too bad, certainly relatively speaking. Now, one of the 2 Allied Racing Porsche Caymans right in front of the KTM, but it's the BMW trying to come through from behind. Those wonderful sweepers up the climb, and then into the compression at Chevlac. Their little fighting for position in front of him will not help Mark van der Aar. He's down in 7th place overall. His last lap was his best one. He's 1.2 seconds down on pole, but He'll get one more go. He's got a minute to get back to the finish line, but he also needs to get around this dicing duo. Dicing, but they're sort of not helping either of themselves. Certainly not helping Mark van der Aar, and it looks like that Jan Kissel tucked in behind, so the driver who's van der Aar, who's 7th, and Kissel, who's 2nd fastest, are really going to have to drop off the tail of this, because in fact with 38 seconds on the clock, I don't think they're even going to get to the checkered flag before it falls. And as pointed out, this final third of the circuit does seem to be where the most spray is. Into the tight right-hander there. That will have far more of a feature in the race. It is an overtaking place, but you need complicity from those around you. So Mark van der Aar backs out of it. Simon Knapp presses on. He's not going to get to the checkered flag, barring some time travel. So at the moment, Daniel Mackay sitting pretty on pole position, only by 0.142 of a second. He's so confident, he's put Nicky Verschoor's McLaren back into the pit lane. And there we have the end of 20 minutes of qualifying. They will complete this flying lap. It looks as though the BMWs are just going to bring it into the pits. So Simon Knapp in number 25 is 4th fastest. Mark van der Aar, his fellow Dutchman, is 7th. But traffic really scuppered things at the end. So Daniel Mackay just checking there's nobody absolutely rocketing around this lap. Here's Alain Ferte, only 16th fastest, but he's going better than before. He's got clear track, so he should be able to pick his way up. Well, you see, if he finds half a second, and very confident through that final corner. Let's see where he goes from 16th. How many places will he gain? He gains no positions, but he does pick up his time, but nearly 3 seconds down on the pace. Don't forget, Ferte's car was hampered by not going out early in the session, and hampered yet further in terms of fast times as Reinhard Koffler sweeps through the final corner by simply the fact he got wetter and wetter through that session. And Reinhard Koffler, will he get into the top 10? That's a very strange thing to be saying. Yes, he does, up into 7th place right at the end. That was a sheer bravado at the end of the lap, but 1.1 seconds away from the pace. But Reinhard, really, really strong driver pairing with Patrick Niederhauser. So I'm sure whatever the weather conditions come the race, he will be up at the sharp end of the field. Jan Kasperlik moved up to 10th place overall in his Porsche right at the end. So we've got McLaren from Mercedes, from Aston Martin, from BMW, best of KTM's in 7th place overall. So 5 makes of car in the top 7 positions as the final few cars go over the start-finish line. That was Olivier Hart. Here are the 2 MDM Motorsport BMWs. Good, solid job done, no mishaps. And unfortunately, the mishap we saw early on, Marius Zug bent the number 111 BMW, the RN Vision STS car, and did not get back out onto the circuit, and so he stays bottom of the time charts. But this is the car that has taken pole position. Daniel Mackay brought it into the pits early, did the work very early on in the session, and as things became ever more damp on the circuit, Nicky Verschoor said, go back out, have a few sighting laps in the full rain, and let's park it up. So very good job from the Dutch racing team on home soil. And actually, just to upset the drivers, it looks as though, as the session is finished, it looks as though the rain is easing down the length of the pit lane. They had the worst of it, but as you can see, still a cloudy morning here at Zandvoort in the rolling dunes just in from the North Sea coast. And let's take a look at the second qualifying session. It was McLaren at the top with Daniel Mackay doing a great job. Jan Kissel pushed very hard indeed in his Mercedes, and then Jamie van den Balk, good running for him. That's a car that's qualified very well indeed, the Street Art Racing Aston Martin in both of the sessions. The best of BMW, Simon Knapp on home ground, and his teammate Mark van der Aar right in the mix. In fact, right at the end, being dropped back to 8th place overall as Reinhard Koffler saved his best for the very last lap of the session. Tricky conditions for all the drivers. A second or so covered the top 6. Not as close as it was in the first qualifying session, but certainly conditions were all the harder as the drivers went out and about it. And right down at the bottom of the chart, 28 cars went out to play. One of them only played for 1 lap, and it had an accident, and that was the one RN Vision STS BMW, and Marius Zug, the driver who crimped the front end. 2 other cars did not go out in the session, but we'll have 30 cars coming out to play for the first of the 2 races for the GT4 European Series here at Zandvoort. Whether it'll be dry or wet, nobody can tell you. It certainly won't be hot. It's not that sort of weather here at the Dutch coastal circuit this weekend. But come what may, it's sure to be absolutely riveting, because GT4 just provides fantastic racing. And so we're all set for the first of the 2 races. Last of the teams just getting their cars wheeled away back into the paddock, far away from here. It's a small paddock behind the pits, and then the large paddock further out. So that is the end of this morning's action for the European GT4 series. Waiting for the race, 12:45. Make sure you watch it. And I'll be here reporting it all. I'm Bruce Jones.